All right, so as Erica was saying, welcome to the People, Parks, and Pups. So this is phase 2 engagement that we're launching this evening. And this is a brief overview of the agenda, which Erica just went through. So I'm going to fly through this, but we will get out of here at 8 o'clock. Again, just to recap, so what we're doing in this project is developing a 10-year strategic plan to guide the planning and management of dog activity in our city. And so in the report, we'll be looking at assessing need and designating space for off-leash activity, as well as attracting use, managing that use, and working together. So these will develop guidelines that the city can use to plan new dog off-leash areas. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be here this evening. And we really need to ensure that the city's parks are carefully planned and designed to support a diversity of uses. So I'll get to this in a minute in terms of wanting to have a balance of voices from those with and without dogs. But just to back up for a moment, in terms of the overall project timeline, you can see here that we are at the phase 2 online engagement. Will launch shortly, and then through that, when we get that round of feedback on the draft recommendations, we'll be moving towards the developing the report, which will hopefully go forward at year end. So I'm going to start off with a poll. Just wanting to start here. Oh. I cannot do that. Okay. You can use the chat function if you like to let us know whether there's a dog in your life, but we will also be doing this as we break into the small group sessions as well. But this was really just a question as we're going through all of our phases of engagement to really get a balance of hearing from those with and without dogs as we move through this strategy.
Allison, just letting you know the poll question did come up.
Yeah, I launched it.
Oh, thank you, Divine.
Yeah.
So I'll let you manage when that closes as well.
All right, it looks like everyone has had a chance to answer. We'll end it and share the results. Is everybody able to see the results?
Yes.
Awesome. All right.
So just wanting to recap what we have heard so far. So we have had our largest engagement event was on the Be Heard New West platform. So we'll be doing that again in phase 2. So you can see the number of participants here on the right. And then we've also have an advisory group that helps guide this strategic report and have been meeting with staff as well. So in terms of engagement to date, we've had about a 60-40 split in terms of whether we've heard from people with dogs and people without. And as one of the key questions that we were asking in phase 1 engagement were really just some high-level questions. So first of all, just to identify what are the top benefits of OLAs. So OLAs, I'll be using that acronym throughout, is off-leash areas. So providing places for dogs to exercise and socialize, encouraging owners to keep off-leash activity to OLAs, and promoting responsible dog ownership. And then the top challenges are safety concerns for dogs, keeping off-leash activity to designated OLAs, and managing dog waste. So in terms of the benefits and challenges, it's interesting that the benefit of having designated off-leash areas for this activity and then the challenge of keeping it there is sort of this real dual perspective on that. We also asked whether OLA is an acceptable use of public parks. And so this graph, just to let you know, there'll be a series of graphs that I'm going to show. The dark blue indicates strongly agree, and then the medium blue is agree. And then the gray is sort of a neither agree nor disagree. And then disagree as pink, and dark pink is strongly disagree. So just flashing on that, you'll get a sense over these next few questions. So in terms of the number of OLAs in New Westminster, there's more of a range of feedback that we received on this one. In terms of the quality of the OLAs that we have, again, you can see quite a balanced range on this one in terms of opinion on whether or not the off-leash areas are of good quality overall. In terms of the distribution of off-leash areas, you can see where we're at. Again, a more neutral feeling here, but about 30% agree and about just over 30% disagree as well. In terms of the size of the off-leash areas in New Westminster, whether they're of adequate size overall, so you can see about 24%, just under 25% agree with that statement. And whether OLAs help reduce conflicts between park visitors with and without dogs. There's a lot of agreement and strong agreement on this too. We also asked about boundaries and off-leash areas. Should off-leash areas be separated from other park activities with a clear boundary? So there's a lot of agreement for this statement. And fencing, that a lot of people agree that the fencing in New Westminster's existing off-leash areas is effective. We also asked about enforcement, and you can see a divergence of opinion on terms of whether there's suitable enforcement of dog activity in New Westminster parks. And we also asked about amenities and what the top 5 desired amenities are. And you can see open areas for running and fetch is key. Drinking water for dogs was very high. And having separated large and small dog areas was also valued. This is just a range of some of the feedback that we've had today. Again, under these categories of attracting use and designating space and managing the operations and working together. So we're taking all of this feedback and then developing these draft recommendations. And these recommendations we have categorized into these following groups. So the key takeaway overall was that the off-leash areas in New Westminster should feel inviting and safe for people and dogs. And so again, in terms of these 4 categories that we're working with, we'll now move forward into an overview of these. Just a recap of the existing 9 off-leash areas plus the 1 dog relief station that New West is currently working with. And so one of the recommendations is to improve access. So we'd be looking at recommending conducting an accessibility audit at all OLA spaces, providing access to OLA park or dog parklets within a 15-minute walk for most residents, so really trying to encourage walking, and prioritizing underserved areas for new OLA space. And I'll get to that in a minute. In terms of typologies and distribution, because of the land constraints that New Westminster faces, we're looking at smaller off-leash areas than other municipalities may have. So we're looking at the park OLAs. So there's currently 8 off-leash spaces located within parks and open space. There's 9 overall. But the sizes of these vary from 0.08 to 0.4 hectares. That's about the size of 2 basketball courts to the size of a softball field. And again, we'd be prioritizing underserved areas when looking at new OLA space. The dog parklet, this is something that we want to speak to you about in this round of engagement. So currently there's 1 dog relief station downtown, but we'd like to look at this idea of the parklet typology and extend it to spaces for dogs. So these are small areas and they often have synthetic turf or some other durable surface and access to water for cleaning, but they can help manage dog waste in higher density areas of the city. And we're going to dive into this one a little bit further. As well as shared use. So this is something that the municipality doesn't currently have. This would be a new typology, so we're looking for feedback on this as well. In terms of introducing hours of use for off-leash activity and or seasonal use, and considering perhaps the use of other sports fields or open spaces that may be suitable, and again, depends on timing for all of this and other considerations. So when we're looking at designating off-leash area space, I mentioned before the recommendation would be to prioritize underserved areas. So we can do that by looking through a few different lenses, a few different metrics to assess this. And one is looking at the density of the service area around the off-leash area. So this is looking at 2016 census data and 2020 dog licensing data. And through this, we can see that Simcoe Park and downtown really serve a large population. When we look at it through another lens in terms of park space, this map identifies the OLA area, off-leash area, per 10,000 residents, and Queensborough comes up as being underserved from that perspective. So when designating space, we're looking at prioritizing the underserved areas, so downtown. So we'd be aiming to replace temporary off-leash spaces. So downtown and Quayside currently have temporary designations. We'd be looking to replace that with permanent OLA space of equal or greater size before the temporary spaces are removed, and engaging community members in this process. Queensborough would be looking at expanding OLA in this location as well, and again, engaging residents in this. And for Simcoe Park as well, looking at those pressures, the high density that it serves there. And because of Simcoe and for the downtown areas, really looking at that durability and attraction of amenities because of the higher use of these areas. We'd also be recommending that we plan for future growth. So looking at future growth areas based on 2035 projected population, looking at it through that lens. And the planning of the frequent transit development areas. So in terms of, I'm just going to move now into the different typologies. So for the park OLA, this is one that we're familiar with because we already have it within the New West system of off-leash areas. So again, our parks have a range of size. They're all fully fenced. They're relatively well distributed across the city when we look at the map of how they are distributed. And Queen's Park, just as a note, is the only one that currently has a separated off-leash small dog area. The dog parklet, as I mentioned before, this would be extending the idea of a parklet and having it be specifically for dog use. And so these are some images from the Pause and Play dog park at Astor Place Rest Stop in New York. And so you can see some agility features, the synthetic turf, fencing, all of these sort of elements. So they occupy, again, like the recommended minimum would be about 2 parking stalls, but the size might vary, but it's within that parking area. And it shifts the use of public space from vehicles to people and pets. It's also a key way to help manage dog waste, especially in our downtown areas. And it's most suited to these areas of high residential density and where there is really limited park space. Oh, of course, these don't take up the broader areas for fetch and that sort of running activity, but they can still serve a key purpose in terms of those higher density areas. And so this we see as an opportunity for the city to develop dog parklet design standards and guidelines. In terms of shared park use, and we want to speak to you about this and hear from people on this. Again, it would be sanctioned off-leash activity during a specified time of day. For example, it might be from 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. on a daily basis, for example, or it might have more of a seasonal application, for example, in the winter months. So it helps maintain flexible park use, but because of this, there's also more potential for conflicting park activities. We've also found when working with other municipalities that some response is that there's confusion about when on and off-leash activity is and isn't allowed. So it really requires clear boundaries, but those areas aren't necessarily fully fenced. So there's more of a communication piece around this. So our draft recommendations, if this was to move forward, would be to engage local residents in the planning, implementation, and management of any shared use OLAs, to conduct feasibility assessments to identify the most compatible park spaces, to conduct a pilot project to introduce designated off-leash hours at specific park locations and engage community members in evaluating its success, to ensure that the boundaries of the OLA areas are clear, and to provide signage in all shared use OLA areas. So this might include identifying applicable bylaws, etiquette guidelines, and clarifying the time restrictions for the off-leash activity. We're also looking, once we have off-leash space designated for off-leash activity, how do you attract use so that it does really fulfill a function and people are using these spaces? So OLAs that are located in higher density areas need to be more durable to support that concentrated use, as we spoke about as the Simcoe example. We're going to introduce here some recommendations for standard amenities and special amenities. The standard amenities would be, the intention would be to provide these at all of the OLAs according to their typologies. And the special amenities would be provided on a case-by-case basis. So there's a few considerations here in terms of the location of the OLA and the population density of the service area, capital maintenance costs, and other things. And OLAs with the highest density service areas, again, would be prioritized. The lighting is something that we heard a lot about in phase 1 engagement. We've listed it here as a special amenity, but we have highlighted it with an asterisk to indicate that it is a high priority item, because lighting can help park visitors feel safe and comfortable and can extend the use of off-leash areas, particularly in the winter season. The lighting at OLAs would be considered on a case-by-case basis, evaluated in consideration of safety, surrounding land use, ecology, existing utility infrastructure, and the city's financial plan, among other considerations. So specifically, we heard a lot about lighting at Queen's Park. And so the city will engage local residents in a process together with a professional biologist in a process to move this forward. We're looking at standard amenities for OLA parks and dog parklets, you can see here, and there will be more information as well to return to on the Be Heard website. So I'm going to move through this more quickly because we can get into this in our smaller group discussions this evening. And then the list of special amenities for these typologies as well. So for separated dog areas, in our phase 1 engagement, we really heard that these spaces are valued to help people and dogs feel safe and comfortable in off-leash areas. And yet, given the limited park space in New West, providing these separated areas at a park OLA can be challenging, particularly in our smaller off-leash areas. So we're looking at the potential of having this dog parklet typology potentially serve as a sort of satellite space as a separated dog area. So it would be, the intention would be that it would be in proximity to the park OLA, but not necessarily part of that OLA space, given the limited OLA space that is there. In terms of managing operations, we're also looking for feedback on dog waste management and strategies to really for the city to best allocate their resources for this. So there will be a survey question as part of the phase 2 engagement that looks at asks about where you think the best allocation of those resources and efforts are. And also working together in terms of community stewardship. We're recommending that the city initiate a stewardship program where residents can work with municipal staff to help plan, design, and manage dog activity in the city. And so we're looking at some different models of what participation might look like and what you might be interested in.